Welcome to Reddit's For Sleep, where every story is your escape into calm. If this video helps you relax or drift off tonight, gently tap that like button so we can keep making more just like this. And if you haven't already, subscribe and let us tuck you in with a fresh hour of stories every single night. Story 1. My boyfriend secretly applied for jobs for me and saved my life. Throwaway, because I don't want anyone from work or my circle finding this. I've been at the same job since I graduated college. It wasn't supposed to be forever, just something to pay the bills until I figured out what I really wanted to do. But then rent went up. Groceries got expensive. The years blurred together. And before I knew it, I'd been in the same cubicle for way too long. It's not a glamorous job. I work in customer support for a tech company that sells business software. At first, I liked it well enough. I'm a people person, or at least I used to be. I didn't mind helping customers troubleshoot their issues. But things changed. The calls got nastier. The metrics got stricter. Suddenly, we were expected to resolve every issue in under 5 minutes, no matter how complicated it was. If a customer didn't give us a perfect satisfaction score, we got flagged for coaching. It's exhausting. These days, I get off work and collapse onto the couch like I've run a marathon. My boyfriend notices. Long day? He'll ask gently, handing me a mug of chamomile tea. Yeah, I mumble, staring blankly at the wall. He's been so patient with me. He's tried everything to help cooking dinner when I'm too tired, rubbing my shoulders when the stress knots up in my neck, encouraging me to apply for other jobs. You're too smart and too good to stay there forever, he told me one night as we brushed our teeth side by side. I nodded, toothpaste foam in the corner of my mouth. I know. I'll start looking. Tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. Every time I opened a job application site, my chest tightened. My brain would start screaming, "You're not qualified. You'll never survive an interview. You'll just end up somewhere worse." So I'd close the laptop and distract myself with Netflix, telling myself I'd try again later. Meanwhile, the job kept eating away at me. There were mornings I sat in my car in the parking lot for 10, 15 minutes, staring at the dashboard and willing myself to go inside. There were nights I lay awake until 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, replaying angry customer voices in my head. Last week, I had my worst day yet. A man called in furious that his software wasn't syncing. I tried to explain it wasn't something I could fix on my end, but he wouldn't listen. He called me useless. Said I was wasting his time and his money. Something in me snapped. I put him on hold, set my headset down, and bolted for the bathroom. I locked myself in a stall and broke down. I couldn't stop shaking. My breathing turned shallow. I thought I was going to pass out. My supervisor found me a few minutes later. She sighed like I was a child, throwing a tantrum. "You need to toughen up," she said. "If you can't handle the pressure, maybe this isn't the right place for you." That night, I curled up on the couch in my boyfriend's hoodie and cried until my face hurt. He didn't say anything, just held me close and let me soak his shirt with tears. 2 days later, after dinner, he sat next to me on the couch and cleared his throat. "There's something I need to tell you," he said carefully, "and I really hope you're not mad." My stomach dropped. I braced myself for the worst. "Okay," I whispered. He opened his laptop and pulled up a folder on the desktop. It was full of documents. Resumes, cover letters, screenshots of job postings, emails from recruiters. It took me a few seconds to understand what I was looking at. You've been applying for jobs for me?" I asked. He winced. "Yeah, for the past month or so. I didn't want to overstep, but you've been so overwhelmed, and I thought, maybe I can take this off your plate." I stared at him, stunned. I only applied to places I thought you'd like. He continued quickly. Companies with better pay and good work-life balance. I made sure to tailor the resumes and cover letters. You're incredible, and you deserve so much better than where you are now. Tears burned my eyes. I know it's a lot, he said softly. If you're upset, I get it. But I couldn't just watch you suffer anymore. I let out a shaky laugh. I'm not upset. I don't even know what to say. Say you'll go to the interviews, he murmured, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. I nodded. I've been carrying this weight for so long I forgot what it felt like to breathe. I hugged him tight and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me when I gave up on myself." We sat there for a long time, my head resting on his chest, the steady thump of his heartbeat calming the storm in my mind. And for the first time in years, I felt like maybe things could get better. Story 2. My mom tried to crash my wedding. So I banned her. This is something I've never said out loud before. Not fully. Even writing it down feels heavy. I'm getting married in 2 months, or at least I hope I am. Planning this wedding has been the most stressful thing I've ever done. Not because of my fiance, not because of the venue or the budget, but because of my mom. My mother has always been complicated. To outsiders, she's charming. She knows how to make people laugh, how to light up a room. But growing up, I saw the other side of her. She's controlling, manipulative, the kind of person who thinks every decision you make is really about her. When I was a kid, she picked out all my clothes. Even in high school, she'd comment on my hair, my makeup, my weight. "I'm just trying to help you look your best," she'd say, her voice dripping with sweetness that didn't match the sharpness in her eyes. When I got engaged, I knew things might get ugly. My fiancé proposed last spring during a quiet weekend trip to the mountains. It was simple, private, perfect, exactly what I wanted. When we came back and told my parents, my mom smiled big and said all the right things. "Oh, honey, I'm so happy for you. He's such a good man. You're going to have a beautiful wedding." But I could see it in her eyes. The calculation. The tiny flicker of disappointment that she wasn't part of the proposal. Within a week, she was calling me 3 times a day about wedding plans. "You should have the ceremony at St. Mary's," she said. "That's where your cousin got married. It's so classy. We can invite all my work friends. They'd love to see you walk down the aisle. Are you sure about that dress? It's a little plain. You'll want something with more sparkle." I tried to be firm, but gentle. "Mom, this isn't going to be a huge wedding. We're keeping it small and simple, just close family and friends." She pouted. "You only get married once. Don't you want it to be special?" It was the same argument over and over. She wanted a big Catholic wedding with 200 guests and a 7-tier cake. I wanted an outdoor ceremony at a vineyard with 50 people and a small dessert table. When I didn't cave, she switched tactics. One afternoon, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. She had a stack of bridal magazines under one arm and an envelope in her hand. "I know you're stressed about money," she said sweetly. "Your father and I have decided to give you $20,000 for the wedding. No strings attached." I froze. It was an incredibly generous offer, but I knew my mom. There were always strings. I thanked her and said we'd think about it. That night, I cried on the couch with my fiancé. "I don't want her money," I said. "If we take it, she'll think she gets to control everything." He nodded. "Then we won't take it. We'll figure this out ourselves." 2 weeks later, My mom found out we'd booked the vineyard. She called me sobbing. "I can't believe you're doing this to me," she said between sniffles. "Your wedding is supposed to be a celebration for the whole family. How am I supposed to invite everyone if you're keeping it so small?" "It's not about everyone else," I said softly. "It's about us. It's our day." "Do you know how embarrassing this is for me?" she snapped. "People will think we couldn't afford a proper wedding for our daughter." That night, she sent me a long, scathing email about how ungrateful I was, how she sacrificed everything to raise me, and how I was shutting her out of the most important day of my life. I didn't reply. Things came to a head last weekend. I was at my maid of honor's apartment for a small bridal shower, just a handful of close friends, drinking mimosas and laughing over silly party games. Halfway through, my phone started buzzing. My mom. I sent it to voicemail. 2 minutes later, another call, then another, then a text. "Why didn't you invite me to the shower? I'm your mother." I stared at the screen, my stomach churning. It wasn't even a real shower, just a casual girls' afternoon. I'd told her weeks ago we weren't doing anything big until the wedding. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. One of my friends peeked out the window and gasped, "She's here." I felt my face go cold. Sure enough, there she was, on the porch, clutching a wrapped gift bag in one hand and her phone in the other. "Let me in," she called through the door. I didn't move. "Do you want me to handle this?" my maid of honor whispered. I shook my head. I walked to the door, cracked it open an inch, and stepped outside. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "You didn't invite me," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm your mother. I should be here." "This isn't a shower," I said firmly. "It's just a few friends hanging out. Please don't make a scene." She set her jaw. "You're shutting me out of everything. First the wedding, now this. You're going to regret this when I'm gone." Something in me snapped. "Mom," I said quietly, my voice shaking, "if you don't stop, you're not coming to the wedding." Her eyes widened. "You wouldn't." "I would." We stared at each other for a long moment. Then she turned on her heel and stormed off to her car, the gift bag swinging wildly in her hand. I stood there until her taillights disappeared. Then I went back inside and burst into tears. I haven't heard from her since. I keep thinking about my wedding day, walking down the aisle, saying my vows, dancing under the stars, and I feel this knot in my stomach. I want her to be there. I want her to be the kind of mom who can celebrate my happiness without making it about herself. But she's not that mom. And I don't know if I can let her ruin this for me too. Story 3. My boss told me to stop acting like I owned the place. So I did exactly that. This happened a few years ago, but I still think about it sometimes when I need a little reminder that standing up for yourself is worth it. I used to work at a small, family-owned hardware store in upstate New York. It wasn't a glamorous job, but I liked it. The regular customers were friendly, and the owners, let's call them Rick and Donna, treated me like part of the family. I started there during college, working weekends and summers. After graduation, they offered me a full-time position as floor manager. The pay wasn't amazing, but I figured I'd stick around for a while, save up, and figure out my next move. By my second year, I basically ran the place. Rick and Donna were semi-retired by then. They'd pop in a few times a week to check on things, but for the most part, I handled everything. Hiring, scheduling, inventory, customer complaints, vendor relationships. It was stressful, sure, but I took pride in the store. I made it my mission to keep the place running smoothly. If a customer needed help carrying a 50-pound bag of concrete to their truck, I was there. If a new employee couldn't figure out how to handle the old cash register, I'd stay late and walk them through it. I knew all the regulars by name: the contractor who came in every Monday for drywall supplies, the elderly man who bought birdseed every Friday, the young couple fixing up their first house. I didn't mind going the extra mile. Until Rick's son came into the picture. Rick Jr. had always been kind of a black sheep. He was in his mid-30s, had bounced between jobs, and suddenly decided he wanted to learn the family business. Rick and Donna were overjoyed. "Junior's finally taking an interest," Donna said one afternoon, her eyes misty. At first, I thought it would be nice to have another set of hands. But it quickly became clear Junior had no interest in learning. He spent most of his shifts scrolling on his phone in the back office. When customers asked him questions, he'd shrug and send them my way. I tried to be patient. "Hey, do you want me to show you how to process inventory orders?" I asked one morning. "Nah," he said, not looking up from his phone. "That's your thing." I let it go. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. It was a Friday, and the store was slammed. A delivery truck was late, 2 employees had called in sick, and I was juggling 3 customers at once when Junior sauntered in 45 minutes late with an iced coffee. "Rough day?" he asked casually. "Yeah," I said, trying not to sound annoyed. "Can you jump on register 2? There's a line." He rolled his eyes but wandered over. 10 minutes later, I heard shouting. A customer was red in the face, yelling at Junior. "This coupon says any paintbrushes?" Junior crossed his arms. "I told you, it doesn't cover premium brushes." The customer threw the brush on the counter and stormed out. I sighed and went over. "Hey, next time just honor the coupon," I said quietly. "It's not worth losing a regular over a few bucks." Junior's face darkened. "You know you've got a real attitude problem," he snapped. I blinked. "What?" "You act like you own this place, like you're the big boss or something. Newsflash, you're not. Maybe you should stop acting like you're in charge." I felt my stomach drop. This kid who couldn't even bother to show up on time was lecturing me about acting like I owned the place? I wanted to scream. But instead, I smiled. "Okay," I said calmly. "You're right. I'll stop." And that's exactly what I did. The next day, I showed up for my shift and did the bare minimum. A customer asked if we could honor an expired sale price. "Sorry," I said flatly. "Can't help you." An employee asked if I could swap shifts with them so they could attend their kid's soccer game. Not my problem. The bathroom ran out of toilet paper. I shrugged. Someone should take care of that. By the end of the week, the place was a mess. Shelves weren't stocked. Employees were confused about their schedules. Customers were complaining left and right. And Junior? He was drowning. On Friday afternoon, Rick and Donna showed up unexpectedly. They took one look around and pulled me into the office. "What's going on?" Rick demanded. "We've had 3 customer complaints today. The shelves are empty. The bathroom's disgusting." I took a deep breath. "Your son told me I was acting like I owned the place," I said calmly, so I stopped. Donna's eyes went wide. Rick's face turned red. They asked me to step outside so they could have a word with Junior. I don't know what was said in that office, but when I came back in, Junior couldn't look me in the eye. That night, Rick called me. "Listen," he said gruffly. "Donna and I are sorry about how things went down. Junior's not ready to take responsibility here. We know you've been keeping this place afloat." The next morning, Junior didn't show up for his shift. I went back to running the store like I always had. And no one ever told me to stop acting like I owned the place again. Story 4. My ex stole my promotion, so I quietly destroyed his career. This happened years ago, but it still feels like it happened yesterday. I was working at a mid-size marketing firm in Chicago. It wasn't my dream job, but I was good at it. I handled a lot of our bigger clients, small businesses, trying to grow their presence. The kind of accounts that needed careful attention and creativity. For 2 years, I poured myself into the work. Late nights, early mornings, weekends spent hunched over campaigns. My boss noticed. "You're going places," he told me one Friday as I handed in my latest campaign brief. I believed him. When a senior account manager position opened up, I applied. I wasn't the only one. But I felt confident. I had the best numbers on the team, clients loved me, and my projects consistently came in under budget. But then, there was Jake. Jake and I had history. We dated in college for about a year. It ended badly. He cheated on me with someone from his econ class, and I found out from her roommate. I swore I'd never speak to him again. Imagine my shock when he joined the firm 6 months after I did. He acted like nothing had happened between us. "Hey," he said casually that first day, as if he hadn't broken my heart years earlier. I kept things professional. Barely spoke to him unless I had to. But he noticed the promotion too. "May the best man win," he said one afternoon, smirking over the top of his coffee mug. I just nodded and got back to work. 2 weeks later, I was called into my boss's office. "We've decided to give the position to Jake," he said, not meeting my eyes. "You're doing great work, but Jake, well, he has a certain energy the clients like." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Jake had only been there a year. His numbers weren't half as good as mine. I forced a smile, thanked my boss for the opportunity, and left the office. Jake cornered me later in the break room. "Hey," he said, "no hard feelings, right? I'm sure you'll get the next one." Something in his tone made my stomach twist. I wouldn't have thought twice about it until I overheard a conversation a week later. 2 coworkers were chatting in the hallway. "Did you hear what Jake said about her?" one whispered. "What do you mean?" "He told the boss she's too emotional to handle clients, that she had a breakdown over an account last month. Said he caught her crying in her office." My blood ran cold. It was a lie. I'd never broken down at work. I was stressed, sure, but I kept it together. He'd sabotaged me, and I knew I couldn't let it slide. The first thing I did was gather evidence. Jake had a bad habit of leaving his laptop open in the break room. One morning I walked by and caught a glimpse of his screen. His personal email. Curiosity got the better of me. He'd been forwarding confidential client data to his personal account. At first I thought maybe it was innocent work-from-home prep or something, but the more I watched, the clearer it became. He was planning to poach clients. He'd even set up meetings with a rival firm across town. I kept quiet. For 3 months, I played the part of the bitter loser. I congratulated him on his new role. I asked for his advice on handling clients. I laughed at his bad jokes. Meanwhile, I printed out every damning email I could find, saved screenshots of his calendar appointments with the rival firm, compiled a neat little folder of evidence. When the time was right, I slid it across my boss's desk. "You might want to see this," I said simply. His face went pale as he flipped through the pages. Jake was fired that afternoon. The firm filed a lawsuit against him for breach of contract. The rival firm dropped him like a hot potato. I got called back into my boss's office a week later. "I'm sorry, we didn't see it sooner," he said. "We'd like to offer you the senior account manager position, effective immediately." I accepted with a smile. As for Jake, last I heard he was working at a chain electronics store in the suburbs. I guess the best man didn't win after all. Story 5. I think my husband loves his sister more than me. I feel awful, even writing this. I love my husband. He's the kindest, gentlest man I've ever met. He brings me coffee in bed on Sunday mornings. He remembers the little things, like how I take my tea, how I like my sweaters folded, which side of the bed I prefer. But there's this knot in my chest that won't go away. We've been married for 5 years. Together, for 7, he's everything I ever wanted. In a partner, steady, thoughtful, patient. Except when it comes to her. His sister. They're close. I knew that when we started dating. 2 peas in a pod, his mom said the first time I met the family. They grew up in a rough household. Their dad left when they were kids. Their mom worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over their heads, so they leaned on each other. I admired it. She was warm, funny, and sharp as a tack. At first, I was grateful for her. She made me feel welcome in the family. But over the years, little things started to chip away at me. When we were house hunting, she came along to almost every showing. "This one's too small for entertaining," she said in one. "The kitchen layout isn't great for hosting," she said in another. Hosting for who? When we finally picked a house, she had strong opinions about where the furniture should go. "This couch will block the natural light. You should move it." I bit my tongue. When we got engaged, she offered to help plan the wedding. It started small color palettes, flower suggestions. Then she began vetoing my choices. "Peonies won't hold up in the heat. Go with roses. You're picking that dress? It's simple. Don't you want something more dramatic?" The worst was the guest list. "You have to invite Uncle Dave. He'll be crushed if he's not there." I barely knew Uncle Dave. When I voiced my concerns to my fiancé, he said, "She's just excited. She means well." So I let it go. After we got married, I thought things would settle down. But she's still here. Every Saturday, she comes over unannounced with a bottle of wine. "Thought I'd keep you guys company," she says breezily. If I suggest we go out for dinner, she tags along. If I plan a weekend getaway, she calls and asks if we want company. She's lonely, my husband says when I complain. Her last relationship ended badly. You're all she's got. I bite my lip and nod. But inside, I'm screaming, "What about me?" 2 weeks ago, we had an argument about it. I'd planned a date night dinner and a jazz show, just the 2 of us. Half an hour before we were supposed to leave, his sister called. "I had the worst day," she said. "Can I come over?" I shot him a look across the room. He hesitated, maybe just for a little while. "Are you kidding me?" I hissed once he hung up. "What?" he said, his brow furrowed. "She needs us." "I need you?" I cried. The words hung in the air like smoke. We didn't go to dinner. Now I'm lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I made a mistake marrying him. I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want to pull him away from his sister. But I can't help feeling like there are 3 people in this marriage, and I'm the outsider. I love him. I do. But I don't know how much longer I can keep feeling like I come second. Story 6. My neighbor tried to parent my kids, so I taught her a lesson. We moved into our house 3 years ago. It's a quiet neighborhood in Northern Virginia, the kind of place where everyone waves as they walk their dogs and leaves little bags of cookies on your porch at Christmas. At least, that's how it seemed at first. Our house is at the end of a cul-de-sac. Across the street lives her. She introduced herself on the day we moved in. "I'm Carol," she said, striding across the lawn in a floral blouse and perfectly ironed slacks. "I keep an eye on things around here. You know, keep the neighborhood safe." Her eyes swept over the moving boxes on our porch, the kids running barefoot in the grass, my husband unloading the U-Haul. "You'll want to keep your boys off the street," she added. "Too many drivers going too fast these days." It wasn't a suggestion. At first I brushed it off. Carol was one of those people who like to feel in charge. Fine, every neighborhood has one. But it didn't stop there. The first real incident happened that fall. I was in the kitchen, unloading groceries, when I heard raised voices outside. Stepping onto the porch, I saw my 8-year-old, Ben, and Carol standing in the driveway. Ben's face was flushed. Carol stood over him with her arms crossed. "Your mother wouldn't like you climbing trees," she scolded. "You could break your neck." I forced a smile as I walked over. "Carol, is there a problem?" She turned to me, frowning. "I caught Ben halfway up that oak tree. I told him it's not safe and he needs to stay on the ground." I took a deep breath. "Thank you for your concern, but he's allowed to climb trees in our yard. I'm supervising from the kitchen." Carol pursed her lips like she'd bitten into a lemon. "Well, I suppose it's your choice." "Yes," I said firmly. "It is." It didn't stop there. Winter came. The first snow arrived in late December. I let the boys play in the yard while I watched from the living room window, sipping coffee. Half an hour later, Carol called my cell. "You should bring them in," she said sharply. "It's too cold for children to be outside." "They're wearing hats and gloves," I said. "They're fine." "Children don't always know when they're cold," she said. "The good mother wouldn't." I hung up. By spring, it escalated. One Saturday, my husband and I were cleaning out the garage while the boys played on their bikes. At some point, Carol walked over and ordered them to ride on the sidewalk only. "They're fine," I called. "We're watching them." She glared at me. "Young boys need boundaries," she said. I smiled sweetly. "And you need to stay in your own yard." The final straw came in June. It was a sweltering afternoon. The boys were running through the sprinkler, squealing with laughter. I was folding laundry upstairs when Ben came tearing inside, his eyes wide. "Mom," Miss Carol yelled at us. I dropped the shirt in my hands. "What happened?" "She said we were being too loud and wasting water. She told us we're not allowed to use the sprinkler anymore." Something inside me snapped. I marched across the street. Carol was in her yard, trimming rose bushes. "Carol," I said sharply. She looked up, startled. "We need to talk," I continued. She set down her clippers. "If this is about the water—" "No," I interrupted. "This is about you overstepping." Again. Her eyes narrowed. "I appreciate that you care about the neighborhood, but you do not get to parent my children. You don't get to decide if they climb trees, play in the snow, ride their bikes, or run through the sprinkler." She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. "No more calls. No more lectures. If you have a problem, come to me or my husband. Do not talk to my kids again unless it's an emergency." For a moment, I thought she might argue, but then her face hardened. "Fine," she said coldly, "if that's how you want it." That's exactly how I want it. I turned and walked back to my house, my hands still shaking. It's been quiet since then. Carol still waves when she passes our house, but it's a tight, brittle wave. The boys climb trees, ride their bikes, and run through the sprinkler as much as they want. and I finally feel like I can breathe again. Story 7. I haven't spoken to my dad in 10 years, and he just sent me a friend request. I stared at my phone for a long time before I realized I was breathing. There it was, a Facebook notification. You have a friend request from John P. I didn't need to click his profile picture to know who it was. It's been 10 years since we last spoke. 10 years since I packed up my car with everything I owned, drove across 3 states, and swore I'd never come back. And now he's here, hovering on the edge of my life like a ghost. My dad wasn't always a bad father. When I was little, he was my hero. On Saturdays, we'd go to the park and race leaves down the creek. He taught me how to ride a bike, how to cast a fishing line, how to whistle through cupped hands. I remember sitting on his shoulders at the county fair, the smell of popcorn in the air, fireworks exploding above us. For a long time, I thought he hung the moon. But as I got older, cracks began to show. My parents argued more. Mom would mutter things under her breath when she thought I wasn't listening. He's out drinking again. Don't set him off. Dad's temper flared like dry kindling. He never hit me, never laid a hand on Mom either. But his words could slice through you like glass. If I got a B+ instead of an A, he'd say, "What's wrong with you? You're smarter than this." If I missed a goal at soccer practice, he'd snap, "Why do you even bother playing if you're not going to try?" By the time I was a teenager, I stopped bringing friends over. You never knew which version of Dad you'd get, the charming one who told funny stories, or the sharp-edged one who found fault in everything. The night everything broke was my high school graduation. Mom had been so excited. She bought a new dress, planned a little party for after the ceremony. But Dad was in one of his moods. He hated crowds, hated traffic, hated sitting still. When I crossed the stage to get my diploma, he wasn't even watching. He was scrolling on his phone. At the party, he snapped at my boyfriend for taking too many soda cans out of the fridge. When I asked him to take a photo with me, he sighed like it was the biggest inconvenience in the world. That night, we had a screaming match in the kitchen. "Why do you always have to ruin everything?" I shouted. "Maybe if you weren't such an ungrateful brat, I wouldn't," he shot back. I don't remember what I said after that, but I remember the sound of my bedroom door slamming. I remember shoving clothes into a duffel bag. I remember Mom standing in the doorway, tears in her eyes. "Don't go," she whispered, but I went anyway. I called her every few months after that. I missed her terribly, but I never called him. He never called me either. When Mom got sick, I came home for a week. She was frail, her voice barely above a whisper, but her eyes still had that familiar warmth. She begged me to forgive him. "He's trying, honey," she said. "He's different now." I wanted to believe her. But when I saw him in the hallway outside her hospital room, all I felt was that old knot of anger and hurt. We didn't speak. Mom died 2 months later. I didn't go to the funeral. I told myself it was because I couldn't afford the plane ticket. But really, I couldn't face him. And now, 10 years later, here he is on my screen. A friend request. No message, just the request. I don't know if he's changed. I don't know if he deserves another chance. Part of me wants to hit delete and move on with my life. But another part of me, the part that still remembers sitting on shoulders at the county fair, wonders if there's still something worth saving. I don't know what I'll do yet. But I had to tell someone. Story 8. My landlord said I couldn't have a pet, so I got 50. I've been renting the same little townhouse for 6 years. It's nothing fancy, but it's cozy. 2 bedrooms, a tiny backyard with a crooked fence, and creaky hardwood floors that sing under your feet at night. I keep to myself. Pay rent early, never throw parties. You'd think I was a landlord's dream tenant. But Mr. Dunlap never liked me. The first time I met him, he looked me up and down like he was assessing a used car. "You work full-time?" he asked. "Yes." "No roommates?" "No." "Boyfriend?" "No." He frowned like that was a problem. "I don't allow pets," he added sharply. "No cats, no dogs, no hamsters, nothing." "That's fine," I said. "I don't have any pets." He handed me the lease, without another word. For the first year, everything was fine. Then one morning, I stepped out to grab the newspaper and saw a notice taped to my door. "Annual inspection, Tuesday at 10 a.m., management." When Mr. Dunlap showed up, he walked through every room like he was hunting for contraband. He opened my pantry, my closets, even the medicine cabinet. "No pets?" he asked, eyeing the windowsill. "No pets," I said calmly. It became a pattern. Every 6 months, another inspection. He'd knock on my walls, peek under my bed. Once, I caught him sniffing the air in my living room. "Smells like dog in here," he said suspiciously. "I don't even like dogs," I lied. Then, last spring, I was sitting on the porch, reading, when a little gray cat wandered into the yard. It was scrawny and skittish, with a torn ear and ribs you could count through its fur. I set out a saucer of milk. The next day, it came back with a friend, a black and white tabby, with a crooked tail. By the end of the week, there were 5 cats hanging around my yard. I didn't invite them in. I knew better. But I couldn't turn them away, either. One evening, I came home to find Mr. Dunlap standing in my driveway, arms crossed. "There are cats all over your yard," he said accusingly. "I noticed," I said. "I don't allow pets." "They're not mine," I said evenly. "They're strays." He narrowed his eyes. "Don't feed them." "I'm not feeding them," I lied. That night, I Googled, "Is feeding stray cats illegal?" Turns out, it's not. But I also found something interesting. My city has a trap-neuter return program. They lend you humane traps, spay, neuter the cats for free, then release them back where you found them. It helps control the stray population. I applied that night. The next week, I set up 2 traps in my yard. By morning, I had caught 3 cats. I had dropped them off at the clinic. 2 days later, I released them back into the yard. They were healthier now, calmer, and more kept coming. By summer, my little backyard had become a haven for neighborhood strays. There were bowls of water hidden under bushes, patches of shade made from old umbrellas. At one point, I counted 11 cats lounging in the sun. That's when Mr. Dunlap showed up again. "I told you no pets," he barked. "They're not mine," I said sweetly. "There are food bowls in your yard." "Those are water bowls," I corrected him. "It's 95 degrees out. I didn't want them to die of heat stroke." He glared at me. "If I see even one cat step foot inside your unit, you're out." I smiled. "Of course." What Mr. Dunlap didn't know is that cats talk. They meowed and purred and rubbed against my screen door. But they never came inside. They didn't need to. By fall, I had trapped, neutered, and returned 50 cats. The neighborhood's stray population plummeted. Animal control stopped by one day and thanked me for my community service. Apparently, the city used to get weekly complaints about feral cats in our area. Now they got none. Last week, Mr. Dunlap came by for another inspection. He didn't find a single hair or paw print inside. But outside, 6 cats lounged on my porch like little kings. They blinked lazily at him as he stomped back to his truck. I still don't have a pet. But every morning I wake up to a symphony of purrs outside my window. And every time I see Mr. Dunlap drive by, I smile. Story 9. My boss took credit for my work, so I took everything from him. I never thought of myself as the kind of person who'd take someone down. But sometimes life pushes you so far you realize you don't have any other choice. The story isn't just about revenge. It's about finding my voice after years of staying silent. I worked as a senior project analyst at a mid-sized tech company in Austin. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved my job. I loved the quiet satisfaction of solving complex problems, the thrill of landing a big client, the camaraderie of late nights in the office with people who cared. At least, most of them cared. Then, there was Eric. Eric was my boss. On paper, he seemed like a good leader, confident, charismatic, always ready with a joke. But anyone who worked under him knew the truth. Eric didn't do anything. He'd breeze into meetings unprepared, take calls on speakerphone in his office all day, and vanish for hours at a time. When deadlines loomed, he'd suddenly show up at my desk, flashing that practiced smile. "How's that big report coming along?" He'd ask. Translation: "Do my job for me again." I didn't mind at first. I've always been a team player. But over time, it became clear Eric wasn't just lazy, he was dangerous. It started small. One day, during a team meeting, I presented the findings of a months-long data analysis I'd done for a major client. Eric nodded along like he was hearing it for the first time. Then, without missing a beat, he turned to the client and said, "As you can see from my analysis, we've identified a clear path forward." My analysis. I froze. Did he just... But the client was already nodding, impressed. "Great work, Eric." I didn't say anything. Maybe it was a fluke. It wasn't. The next time, Eric pulled the same stunt during a conference call with the executive team. He repeated my talking points word for word. "Let's give Eric a round of applause for this brilliant strategy," the VP said. My face burned. I wanted to speak up, to say, "That was me. I did that too." But Eric caught my eye across the table and smiled. It was the kind of smile that said, "Don't even think about it." Months passed like this. I worked 12-hour days while Eric took long lunches and accepted accolades for his work. I lost sleep. My hair started thinning from the stress. One night, I stayed in the office until 2 a.m. building a presentation for an investor pitch. The next morning, Eric delivered it flawlessly, and the investors loved him. He got a massive bonus. I got a $25 Starbucks gift card and a pat on the back. The breaking point came when I applied for a promotion. The director of operations position had opened up. It was perfect for me. I had the experience, the numbers, the support of my team. But when I went to submit my application, the portal said, "This position has already been filled." I found out later that Eric had put his name in for the role, using my projects as proof of his leadership skills. And he got it. I went home that night and stared at the ceiling for hours. For years, I'd let him walk all over me. But not anymore. I was done playing nice. The first step was information. I started documenting everything. Every email, every Slack message, every time Eric took credit for my work. I even kept a journal of his absences, noting when he left early or failed to show up for meetings. Next, I called up an old friend from college, a lawyer who specialized in employment cases. "Keep your head down," he advised. "Build your case." When the time is right, we'll move. So I waited and planned. 3 months later, the perfect opportunity arrived. Eric had just been promoted again, this time to VP. He was celebrating with a week-long vacation in Cabo. While he was gone, a major client emailed him directly with a serious complaint. The software update Eric had promised them wasn't ready. He'd never even told the team about it. The email chain was disaster evidence of Eric making guarantees he couldn't keep, promising features we hadn't built. I forwarded the chain to HR, along with my carefully compiled folder of documentation. Then I sat back and waited. When Eric returned from Cabo, he walked into the office with a golden tan and a smug grin. By lunchtime, he was gone, escorted out of the building by security. The fallout was glorious. The executives were furious about the lost client. An internal audit revealed Eric had been expensing personal dinners, golf trips, even spa treatments under client relations. His reputation in the industry tanked overnight. Last I heard, he's selling insurance out of a strip mall. As for me, HR offered me Eric's VP position. I accepted. Now, every time I walk past his old office, my office now, I can't help but smile. Story 10. My stepson asked if he could call me Dad. It started with a knock at the bathroom door. "Hey," a small voice said. I opened the door to find Tyler standing there, clutching his stuffed dinosaur like it was a shield. "Can you help me with my shoelaces?" he asked, his voice quiet but steady. "Of course, buddy," I said, kneeling down. He stuck out his little sneaker, the laces tangled into a knot so tight I couldn't tell where it began. As I worked them free, he stared at me with those big brown eyes, his little brow furrowed. "Are you my dad now?" he asked softly. My hands froze on the knot. I looked up, and for a moment the air in the room felt heavier. I married his mom 6 months ago. Tyler was 4 when I met him. I still remember the first time I saw him, his tiny face peeking out from behind her legs, his eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Tyler, this is Jack," his mom said. "He's my friend." "Hi," he whispered. "Hi, Tyler," I said gently. "I like your dinosaur." He held it up proudly. "This is Rexy. He's not scary. He's a nice T-Rex." "That's good," I said with a smile. "Nice T-Rexes are the best kind." Back then, I wasn't sure I'd be any good at this. I'd never been around kids before. I didn't know what to say. When they cried, I didn't know how to talk about superheroes or how to make up silly games on the spot. But Tyler made it easy. Our early days were slow and tentative. He'd sit on the other end of the couch while his mom and I talked. Sometimes he'd sneak glances at me when he thought I wasn't looking. If I smiled, he'd turn away, his cheeks flushing pink. Then one night, I heard footsteps in the hallway. I peeked around the corner to find Tyler standing there, clutching Rexy under one arm. "Mom's asleep," he whispered. "I know," I whispered back. "Can I sit with you?" "Of course." He climbed onto the couch and settled against my side. We watched cartoons until he fell asleep on my shoulder. That was the first time I felt that warm, protective tug in my chest. His mom warned me early on. "Tyler's dad isn't around. He hasn't been for years." I nodded, unsure what to say. "It's been hard for him," she added. "Just go slow, okay?" I went slow. At first, I was just Jack, the guy who helped him build Lego towers. The guy who read silly voices in bedtime stories. The guy who clapped loudest at his t-ball games, even when he missed the ball. But over time, things started to shift. When he fell off his bike and scraped a knee, he ran past his mom straight into my arms. When his preschool teacher asked him to draw his family, He drew 3 stick figures: his mom, himself, and me. And now, here he was, standing in front of me, asking the question I'd secretly been hoping to hear someday. Are you my dad now? I took a slow breath. Well, I said softly, I'm your stepdad. That means I'm married to your mom, and I get to help take care of you too. He tilted his head, thinking hard. But can I call you Dad, if I want to? My throat tightened. You can, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Only if you want to. He nodded slowly. Okay, he said. Then he smiled. Thanks, Dad. I don't know why, but my eyes stung as I finished tying his shoes. There you go, champ, I said, my voice catching slightly. Can we go to the park now? He asked. Yeah, I said, clearing my throat. Let's go. We spent the whole afternoon at the park. He climbed the jungle gym like it was Mount Everest. I pushed him on the swings until he was laughing so hard he could barely breathe. Higher, Dad. Higher, he shouted, kicking his little legs in the air. And every time he said, Dad, I felt that warm tug in my chest grow stronger. That night, after we tucked him in, his mom leaned against me on the couch. He called you Dad today, she said softly. I know, I whispered. He's never asked that before, not with anyone. I kissed the top of her head. I'll never take it for granted. I know you won't, she said. As I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I paused at Tyler's door. He was asleep, his little chest rising and falling, Rexy tucked under his arm. And for the first time, I felt it fully. This wasn't just my wife's son. This was my son. If you're still awake, thank you for spending your time with us. We'd love to have you back tomorrow night, so go ahead and subscribe. Tap like if this video helped you unwind. And let us know in the comments what kind of stories help you fall asleep. Sleep well. See you in the next one.